The film begins by showing a hunt carried out by a cloaked figure on a remote planet. After finding the trail of his prey, this figure immediately takes action. Arriving at a cave, it turns out this young predator named Dek is training to hunt together with his older brother, so that he can become a true predator. Short on time, after a quite fierce mechanical duel, the brother named Quay says that Dek's abilities are not yet enough to become a true predator. However, he feels that Dek still has a chance, provided he is capable of honing his skills again. Upon returning to the ship, Quay asks his younger brother to train independently, where now he wants Dek to choose a planet that he can use as a hunting ground, as well as a training ground. In the middle of the search, suddenly Quay panics when his younger brother actually chooses planet Genna to be made into a hunting arena, because besides its extreme climate, that planet is inhabited by the most savage monster named Kalisk, which is very feared by the predators because its regeneration ability makes no sense. However, Dek, who is always considered weak by his clan, is determined to prove that he is worthy of being the son of a clan leader, especially since he does not want to make his father feel ashamed. Until in the middle of the debate, they rush out to welcome the arrival of the father. When the father named Njohrr arrives, he is surprised why Quay has not yet carried out his duty toward Dek, who is considered a disgrace within his clan. However, Quay asks the father to give a chance to Dek, especially since he is sure that Dek will be capable of proving himself. Where now Dek plans to hunt the Kalisk monster, which is the most feared monster. However, Njohrr, who feels that is impossible, does not heed his son's words. Apparently, Njohrr asks Quay to execute his own younger brother, who is considered family trash. Although it is heavy, Quay cannot defy the order of his father, who is a clan leader. Unexpectedly, Quay, who doesn't have the heart to finish off his younger brother, recklessly stages a rebellion. When the father prepares to perform a fatality, Quay only tries to fly the ship belonging to the younger brother. Instantly, Dek is severely shocked when seeing Quay die executed by his own father, but thanks to that, Dek succeeds in shooting off using the ship toward his hunting planet. After traveling a long distance, Dek panics when his ship is almost destroyed moments before arriving at planet Genna. Although he has aches and pains, Dek manages to land using a rescue capsule. Realizing he's on the most dangerous planet, Dek immediately makes hunting preparations. However, in the middle of preparation, Deck immediately becomes alert when sensing something in that place. And it turns out this forest is inhabited by dangerous carnivorous roots. Luckily, Deck is still able to survive the carnivorous roots that are always hungry. At that moment too, Deck is stunned when seeing the situation and ferocity of this planet. Short on time, before carrying out the hunt, Deck tries to treat the wound on his hand using leaves. Instantly, Deck is amazed because this planet is so dangerous, even a small caterpillar can explode like a firecracker. A moment later, Deck has to pass through a savanna of thorny wheat that can explode at any time. However, at that moment too, Deck is surprised when hearing the voice of a woman asking for help using the predator language. Then, an android named Thia warns Deck to be careful of the arrival of the dragon, which is always looking for prey using toxic thorns and exploding plants.
Oh boy!
Thia informs him that those thorns can make Deck paralyzed and he will be immediately devoured by the dragon.
Die alone too!
After his neck is stabbed by the toxic thorns, Deck, who is dizzy, immediately throws a shuriken to free Thia. Right on time, Thia the mighty android succeeds in saving Deck.
Excuse you, sir.
After Deck regains consciousness, Thia reveals that she is a sophisticated android created by Weyland-Yutani, assigned to conduct research on this planet. Then Thia, who knows Deck wants to hunt the Kalisk, asks him not to be reckless. Especially before his body gets dismembered attacking that creature. She has found predator bones several times on this planet. After seeing Deck's damaged navigation tool, Thia, who wants to get her lower body back, invites Deck to work together to head to her capsule. Especially since inside that capsule, there is a special weapon that Deck can use to finish off the Kalisk. Until finally, Deck decides to work together with Thia to face all obstacles on this planet.
You may call me Thief. How old are you?
How fast were you going when your ship crashed? Predatory organisms are my specific...
Arriving at the forest, Deck immediately makes a binding rope using tree roots so he can easily carry Thia, who has no legs.
Well, let's back up.
At night, when Deck is about to rest, she tells about the mission she got from Weyland-Yutani, where she and her twin named Tessa were assigned to lead a squad of androids to conduct mapping and exploration on this planet. However, unluckily, she and her team instead received a brutal attack from the figure of Kalisk, who is the creature at the peak of the food chain on this planet. But even so, Thia, who was separated from her twin, feels sure that Tessa is still safe. Meanwhile, in the lab, Tessa, who experienced severe damage, is seen undergoing a repair process. Until in the middle of the repair, Tessa, who wakes up, immediately asks for Thia's whereabouts. The next day, Deck and Thia finally arrive at the Silver Grassland. Seeing a large creature in front of him, Thia informs him that the creature is Kalisk's favorite prey, which they can use as bait. However, when about to start the hunt, Deck's hand gets wounded because it turns out this silvergrass is very sharp. Just as Deck pulls it out, at that moment too, appears a figure of a creature resembling a monkey that also wants to hunt that creature. And amazingly, this monkey looks very strong.
Is better.
After failing to get his prey, Deck, who is annoyed, immediately attacks the Tenyum who disturbed his hunt. However, in the middle of the fierce mechanical duel, instantly Thia panics when seeing the creature preparing to attack. Damn, truly sharp. Deck easily slashes his prey until it splits in two, but suddenly...
Not a Kalisk!
Right on time, the very tough monkey succeeds in saving Deck and Thia, until a moment later, they immediately run fast when seeing the octopus creature chasing again. Finally, thanks to the monkey distracting attention, Deck succeeds in finishing off this creature. At night, while warming himself near the campfire, Deck is seen giving a little of his game meat to the monkey. However, instantly Deck is annoyed when the monkey instead gives him thick spit, but Thia informs him that is a sign of respect, where Deck is already considered by the monkey as his friend. Until a moment later, Deck reveals his reason for wanting to hunt the Kalisk, where that is an effort of proof to his clan, as well as honoring the trust of his late brother. Meanwhile, on the other side, Tessa, who has recovered, finally finds Deck's ship. Together with her android squad, they immediately conduct a search. Instantly, Tessa is happy when finding the complete armament belonging to the Predator race, which is considered to possess cutting-edge weaponry. The next morning, Deck, who does not want to waste time, rushes to continue the journey by leaving the monkey who is still sleeping. The research that was messed up by the Kalisk monster. Then after finding her leg parts, Thia rushes to start the reattachment process. In the middle of the reattachment process, Deck immediately asks for the weapon he can use to finish off the Kalisk. However, Thia instead asks Deck to leave because soon her team, who is trying to hunt the Kalisk, will arrive shortly. Not only that, Thia, who feels Deck will not be capable of facing the Kalisk, asks him to undo his intention. Instantly, Deck is annoyed when realizing he has been used. In the middle of his annoyance, Deck, who is already set in his stance, rushes to lure the Kalisk even with makeshift weapons. Until a moment later, Deck intends to lure it using leftover spilled gasoline. When the Kalisk monster comes, Deck's ready to duel. After her body reattachment fails, Thia, who has no other way, finally tries to help Deck. Although having performed an epic attack, this creature has regeneration that truly makes no sense, like swamp magic. Until when Deck is cornered, Kalisk suddenly stops his attack after he smells a scent he recognizes on Deck's body. Then suddenly... Unexpectedly using a freezing bomb, Tessa and her team easily incapacitate Deck and Kalisk. Short on time, in the middle of the journey to the lab, Deck, who wakes up, tries to free himself. Seeing that, Tessa immediately performs a scan on Deck, where she intends to make Deck an additional specimen for Weyland-Yutani. When Thia becomes active again, Tessa reveals that they have succeeded in capturing Kalisk, and will also make Deck an additional specimen. Seeing that instantly makes Thia panic. She asks her twin to just take the Predator technology, which is considered sophisticated, and let Deck live. However, Tessa, who is very obedient to protocol, does not heed Thia's advice. In the middle of the debate over what Thia did, suddenly Jack informs that Tessa received a call from headquarters. Until after Tessa leaves, Deck asks Thia to perform a gimmick, so Jack activates the device she is holding.
You heard the orders.
What is the device?
He says it's a map.
Yautja.
Luckily, thanks to Thia's gimmick, she succeeds in freeing Deck. At night, with skeletal legs, finally Deck manages to find his stranded ship. And because all his weaponry has been taken, Deck is determined to craft weapons from whatever is on this planet. After crafting weapons, Deck is surprised when seeing the monkey crying. Then after smelling Kalisk's saliva scattered around, Deck realizes if this monkey is actually the child of Kalisk. And now, Deck is determined to save Thia, and also the monkey mother at the Weyland-Yutani headquarters. Then by using Thia's severed leg pieces, they try to find the location. With a hobo predator suit, Deck performs a smuggling into the Weyland headquarters. At that moment too, Thia's legs are seen walking looking for her body. After successfully finishing off several android troops, Deck rushes to continue his mission. Meanwhile, on the other side, Thia's legs sneak around to perform an ambush. After successfully finishing off the officers, she rushes to perform the reattachment. Luckily, Thia, who finished reattaching her legs, succeeds in saving Deck. Then Thia immediately invites Deck to leave before the officers come swarming. However, Deck says that we must save Kalisk first because actually, Kalisk is the mother of the monkey. In the middle of disbelief, Thia agrees to free the monkey's mother, while Deck is asked to distract attention.
You have 20.
A moment later, Thia and the monkey are seen sneaking around while the troops are distracted by Deck, who acts like a Ronin. Truly clever, Deck succeeds in flattening the troops by using firecracker caterpillars and thorny wheat. However, now Tessa comes riding a Gundam mecha robot. In the middle of the fierce mechanical duel, Deck says that he will leave the rest to his ally. Deck succeeds in spearing the freezing bomb thrown by Tessa, and now Kalisk succeeds in devastating Tessa's Gundam. Finally, Tessa becomes Kalisk's snack, until a moment later, the monkey cannot hold back his emotion when he can meet his mother again. However, in the middle of the warm atmosphere, suddenly something happens to Kalisk. Instantly, they are severely shocked when Tessa succeeds in detonating the freezing bomb from inside Kalisk's stomach. And now Tessa, who feels betrayed, prepares to finish off Thia. Finally, they succeed in finishing off Tessa. However, in the middle of Monkey's sadness, Deck tries to calm him down, where now he will make Monkey his new family. Long story short, Deck finally returns to his planet to demand revenge for what has befallen his brother. Then, while throwing Tessa's head as an offering, Deck directly challenges the father to a mechanical duel. However, Njohrr, who feels Deck is not yet worthy, immediately asks his two guards to finish off Deck. seeing Deck's rapidly developed abilities, Njohrr immediately steps in to finish off his son. Finally, Njohrr, the cruel father, dies becoming a snack for the monkey. However, after successfully getting the camouflage tool, instantly Deck panics when seeing the mother's armada ship arriving. Approximately, will Deck's squad be capable of facing the mother's armada? The predator is usually the villain, but what happens when he's the underdog? This movie teaching us that real strength isn't about being the biggest alpha in the room, but about finding your own tribe. Through Deck, the Runt predator, we learn that trying to impress toxic leaders is a waste of time, and that true power comes from adaptability and unexpected allies. It basically destroys the idea that only the strong survive by showing that empathy and teamwork can take down even the most unkillable monsters. I'm Jack, thanks for watching, and see you in the next video. Adios.